Hi and welcome to whatever this is that I haven't even labelled yet again. um, Barry was actually sitting watching one of the videos, I think I did with Ian Bray, was it?
Yeah.
Ironically. And there's a question we've got that we always do at the end, and it's actually by Ian Bray for Barry, and obviously Ian Bray at the time didn't have a clue who it would be. In fact, I thought it would be Sarah Kate, my friend. But we haven't had a chance to do that yet, and that's planned. Before we get going, I must just say that I'm thinking about doing a photo walk in August in Liverpool. I was speculating doing one in London, but after looking at the price of trains and hotels, I was quite shocked at the moment. Like, tickets for London from Liverpool are nearly £100 for Liverpool, and I used to do that for £14.50 on an advance ticket. And in the early days, £8, and then £10, and now it's £100 or £79.99 upwards. And first class I used to get for £53 on advance, and now it's £400. I mean, I am not going to London, I'm afraid, until these trains sort themselves out. So, right, today we've got Barry. I've known Barry for, I'm not actually sure how long, Barry.
Some time.
Some time.
Yeah.
I've known Barry for some time. I can't even remember how we met, whether it was on a photo walk or on a photo walk. We got to know each other over the years. We both got a bit of a story in our past, and Barry's definitely one of them. I'm going to touch on some of that today. Mostly my YouTube podcast type thing is about retirement, but elements of retirement and also a bit about people's lives and health and everything else. And some of my questions for Barry today are a bit strange because we know each other, and I was going to send him the questions the night before, then I thought it's a waste of time. So it's going to be a little bit off key. Some of them will be off my iPad, but I'm sure we'll work our way through it, and I'm sure you'll find it interesting, which is why I've asked Barry to come on today. I've still got quite a few other people to do, but it seems to be quite difficult to tie people down. So Barry and I are going to do this, and then hopefully we can move on from there. So, what did you used to do for a living, Barry?
When?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the last thing, I suppose.
The last thing was social worker, working in the community.
Yeah.
Supporting people living with disabilities and learning difficulties.
Okay.
And that stopped because of illness.
Yeah. And before that, just a few of them.
Okay.
The ones you like the most.
Right. Well, nursing first of all.
Yeah.
Well, I got into nursing because of illness. Lots of things have changed in my life because of illnesses.
It's a bit like me then.
Yeah. So I did nursing, general nursing, and I absolutely loved the nose and throat theatre because every day was different. You know, even the morning and the afternoon, it was always fantastic. I loved it. Great team to work with. That was smashing. I did that for about a year. And then we had to shut down because they found Legionnaire's disease and the outlet. So the whole theatre had to be cleaned and stripped. Short spell on the men's medical ward, which I absolutely hate. Drugs and potions and how's your blood pressure? And I did another year after that in the intensive care unit in the next hospital next door, Bagley Hospital. And that was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, really, you know, night duty was just as busy as daytime. It was really hectic, which I like.
Is that what you wanted to do when you was at school? Or?
No. I was typical. I was the youngest of four.
Yeah.
With a baby of four.
Yeah.
And they're all been engineering, so I was automatic. I went to engineering.
Okay.
And then due to a rugby, I got kicked and ripped my ligaments at my left knee. Somebody did.
Yeah.
So I had 2 or 3 months off work. Well, it got better. And a few months later, Fleming did it again, but something innocuous, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
So I got made redundant because they couldn't, I was apprentice engineer, so I couldn't make up like 4 or 5 months of college.
Yeah.
Plus, it would take so long to get me apprenticeship. We both said, forget it.
So in a way, it's a strange thing. We spoke about this before, I know, but it's a bit like my journey, really, where something's happened that's changed your career path. It's a bit like sliding doors, but an injury changes your career path, and you diversify and move on.
And then I saw a lot of things about nursing while I was off. And one of them, you're too young to remember possibly, Alma Cogan, she came out, she'd been in hospital for something, cancer or something. And then it was like literally a few months of nothing, but I kept seeing nursing. So I was used to death, I was used to blood because of my grandma, etc. I saw her laid out in the coffin, she was there for 3 days in the parlour, as it were. So nothing else bothered me apart from shit and poo, basically. I wasn't too keen on that.
No, I don't think anyone is. No.
So I went
think you've got to be special to be. Yeah.
So I went to as a nursing auxiliary up in Stockport to try it, old folks' place, and in 3 months I ended up having to lay out 13 dead bodies. Oh, so I got used to it. So then I qualified and got local hospital.
Qualified in dead bodies.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So I've seen a lot of them, and especially after that. So then I got a job at the local hospital near me, Wythenshawe, South Manchester. Yeah. That's where I trained, and that's where I went from there, nursing. Then after nursing, I must tell you about my firstborn. I was in intensive care and on evening shift, and my wife was in maternity next hospital. So I rang up, she's in delivery unit. Oh, great, yeah, that's right. So I went to the delivery unit. So yeah, wait there a minute, we'll tell you as soon as he's coming, we'll get you in, okay. By this time, it was 4:15, you see, so by 4:20, they still haven't called me in, so I don't know. Unfortunately, a young doctor I used to do rock climbing with, Barrie, I've gone in to see for you, yeah. 5 minutes to get, hey, you've got a son. It came out as I opened the door to tell you. So I had 5 minutes to ring my mother and my mother-in-law to say we got a son, And I went to the intensive care and said, my dad, I've got a son, fantastic. And the jazz nurse said, fantastic, great, yeah, sit. You're not going in another patient the rest of the evening. Not in that state. So that was that. And then I went to work with people with epilepsy for 3 years. Yeah. At a residential centre. Mm-hmm. From 5-year-olds up to the eldest at one point was 90, but various different types of epilepsy, so I was nursing there. And I volunteered at a local community centre, not community school, basically Borstal, locally. That got me into childcare, so I eventually went into childcare, started an assessment centre in literally about a mile from the hospital where I worked. Right. So that's how I started my childcare career off. So that's where I started. And carried on from there and moved around. From there to Bristol, then from Bristol to West Midlands, then from West Midlands to London, then from London to
most of your life caring for people. Then.
Yeah. And again, I've got this job as deputy head at Tooting, a short-stay emergency placement unit, for delinquent adolescents. And 3 months later, I'm in St George's Hospital down the road. I'd collapsed. Oh. I could hardly move. And they found out I've got a viral infection that travelled the whole of my right-hand side of my body, my left arm, but it attacked the nerve linings of the whole of that side and this arm. And really urinated up because I was due to take my senior canoeing instructor's exam in the May. That was April 81. So again, I was really looking forward to being an instructor. I could do lots of opportunities, all the things I was going to do. Yeah. So back to that. Yeah.
So is that the sort of thing did you have a lot of hobbies outside?
Oh yeah, because I did canoeing, rock climbing, canoeing, skiing, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then I went to working with Bernardo's because they were changing the unit, what it was doing. Mm-hmm. So I ended up with deputy at Bernardo's. And then my mother-in-law fell out of the tree up in Rhuddlan, North Wales at 72 or something. Typical mother-in-law. She didn't fall out of the tree. She slipped out of the tree, which threw into the wall of the garage, which then catapulted her into the tree, the bark of the tree, then on the floor. Yeah. So when my wife went up to see it, she had about a postage stamp on her body that wasn't covered in bruises. So we said, that's it, because my mum was starting with Alzheimer's in Manchester, so we were going up to Manchester or to North Wales. So that's it, we decided that's it, got to move. Yeah. And the funny thing is, Thatcher just started that home buying thing, so we managed to get a flat, ex-council flat. But in 3 years, it was 14,000 for us, But when we sold it, it was 60,000 in 3 months.
Bloody hell.
And literally every other shop that shut opened as an estate agent in the area.
Yeah.
And came up here and then thought I was going to get a job with Bernardo's again.
Yeah.
But it fell through because lots of things had happened. Not for me, the other side, Bernardo's side. Then started work for another agency, caring for people with severe learning difficulties and mental health and things, up at Colwyn Bay. And that lasted 18 months until I got the sack. Because I was not being that efficient. I was caring more about the people than the plastic rules. It got me a little bit.
Yeah.
They were treating them, some of the staff were treating them as objects. Half a dozen toothbrushes in the pocket and toothpaste in there. No, they're individuals. Anyway. So my mate got me to part-time driving for Michaels and Flower for about a year.
Yeah.
And I gradually built up working for the social services, looking after people with learning difficulties in the community, supporting them. So it progressed from there. And then that was that. Did that, do an MVQ at the end. I went in one morning to do so I started doing MVQ because that's for people, and I was already qualified social worker, so you do the MVQ training. This was then the October, my son got married, the youngest son, and a week later I collapsed at work. I'd done assessing the day before, so I went up to talk about my books and things upstairs, and maybe myself a cup of coffee. Then it just felt like someone had unscrewed 2 bolts from the bottom of my feet. The energy just went thump. I couldn't move. I couldn't even physically pick my cup of tea up. Went to get it, just exhausted. So long story cut very short, I got ME. But I've also been to the local college, like satellite unit, local college. Great, I've been in childcare, I'm nursing, I've worked with kids, worked with people. You'll be great, and you qualified MVQ, I'll be smashing, Again, illness and through that, life just went out the window, and that was it. That was 96, 95, and then I was retired due to ill health in 96.
So you didn't exactly have much time to think about retirement at all before that?
I was officially retired in 96. So
it was a bit of a shock, really.
Just a wee bit, especially the fact I'm still doing rock climbing, canoeing, skiing, and then suddenly, and a biker. I had a 750 GT.
Yeah. Did the ME stop you doing any of the things at the time? Oh, okay.
Completely.
Oh, everything.
Yeah, everything.
All the stuff.
Including picking a camera up.
Yeah.
I'd pick it up and start to shake and I'd put it down again. I couldn't take photos. I had to take photos of grandkids as they were born, or Christmas or birthday, but that was about it. I couldn't hold the camera otherwise.
So pretty much wiped you out for. How long did it wipe you out for?
The first 5 years were the worst. The height of it, well, I don't know about it, but my wife said anything up to 10 to 15 hours a day I was asleep. Okay. So all I remember is going to the loo, coming back and feeling absolutely exhausted, just collapsing on the bed. That's all I'd done. Barry and
I spoke about some of this a little while ago. Barry knew quite a lot about me and I didn't know a lot about him. And we sort of caught up, and one of the interesting things is Barry had that, but I had acute urticaria debility at one point in time in my life, and I was exactly the same. And I managed to keep my job unbelievably, but for about a year, I was asleep every day because of the medication I was on, and it takes its toll on you mentally, doesn't it? Because
you're not kidding.
You
being so active and then
to be so active and then not being able to do anything, and you just don't know where you are or what you want to do. And some people get really suicidal on it, and because it gets you down, because you just want to do all the things you want to do and you just can't. Can you?
No. And one of the worst aspects of that was that you'd phone me up, perfectly good conversation, quite, we'd answer things, quite good at it. And 5-10 minutes later, Muir would say, "Who was that? Who was what? What are you talking about? The phone call? What phone call? I haven't got a clue. I'd made the phone call. Gone completely."
And I can relate to that since my stroke, because exactly the same. Jane says, ask me questions and everything else about things I've done, and I just think, what are you talking about? Or a lot of the time I just think, Why are you asking? Because I don't know the answers.
Oh, Muriel said, for the third time, yes, I'll have a cup of coffee. Oh, sorry, I'm not making it now then.
Well, I used to boil the kettle a lot, but I boil it a lot more these days.
Yeah.
Because I boil it and forget I boiled it. I used to just boil it, everyone does it, don't they? They boil the kettle 3 or 4 times. And then, especially in a hotel room.
Yeah.
But now, I boil the kettle, and then I'll sit down and, like, in here and think to myself, oh, I'll watch something. And I think, where's that cup of tea?
Yeah. The side effect I had with ME was that it affected my hip and my back. So for
that's interesting.
some people have different things.
Yeah.
One lad I knew, I'll tell you about in a minute. I couldn't walk, but I ended up having to use a walking stick. So for 2.5 years, ended up epidural injections every so often till they didn't work. Then they decided, oh, we'll do facet joint injection. You know, where your spinal column comes down and nerves join. Well, they'll inject you then. But the thing with that is you'll be watching the needle in front of you on the screen. And when you scream, that's the one they'll inject. So I had that for 18 months. Then I went to Walton for this guy because they stopped working. Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic. Literally, I walked in with a walking stick. I walked out with it across my shoulder.
Oh, bloody hell. And
at the end of it, he said, you know what you must do. And this other guy was going to come in and tell me what exercises to do to try and build myself up again. He said, oh, I know what you're going through. This is the consultant. I said, yeah. He said, oh, I can see the doubt in your face, yes. I've got ME as well. I can only do this job part-time.
Bloody hell.
He said, that's the only way I can do it, it's part-time. It affects me.
That's a coincidence because after my stroke, my consultant that I waited like 6 months to see that was going to do an assessment on my brain damage and everything else. I walked in there and he had a stick and he was sitting there. I think it was in the Walton Centre as well. And he said, I've been off for 1.5 years. And I said, oh, why is that? And he goes, same as you. And he had the same stroke as me and everything else. And he was just coming back. Yeah. And he said to me, like, you won't get better, but you'll learn to cope and you'll learn to work around the brain damage, but your brain will never get better. That bit's gone. So you will learn to put systems and processes into place to work around the deficit, and that you do, but it's not as quickly as he says it is. And a lot of things seem to get worse before they get better. I think when they tell you that that's it, you're going to do this, this and this, you think, oh great, it doesn't work out like that, does it?
No. I think the best thing for me was that I went on the only second ME clinic in North Wales. Yeah. Oh, to walk into a room, there's 8 or 9 people. Oh, thank God, it's not just me. Yeah. Oh. And so that I'm going to say that bloke, he found that his, you know, that everything comes with different things with ME. You know, his was perfume. First time he found out, he walked into a store with his wife. Perfume counted and promptly vomited there.
Well, one of the weirdest things with me is I have lost quite a lot of my sense of smell.
All right.
I can still smell, like, but
really?
It's got. I can still smell, not just the farts. No, I can still smell, but it has to be a strong smell or a certain type of smell. But like generally, I can't sort of.
Well, this bloke, he's, you know, and he found that in the end, his wife would have to go into wherever they're going to see where the perfumes were. So they could either go into a different entrance or he'd go completely the other way around opposite to her to meet her at the other side. And I got this similar, but not quite as bad. But anyone's strong perfume with me literally makes me choke.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, you know, one with strong perfume walked past.
I think the weirdest thing is.
Breath away.
Well, the funny thing is, funny you should say that. So even though I've lost a lot of senses of smell, when you walk past people that smell of soap or something, that's really quite strong. So that's a bit strange. Yeah. How weird's that? I never thought of it that way.
Normally, otherwise, smells fine, but some, especially when you go into a store and I'm really joking with it.
I think it's obviously something to do with the brain there. All those type of.
Well, we had Dr. what's her name? Dora, whatever her name was. Anyway, she was a specialist in it, and she did loads of experiments. And there's a sensor in your brain that's like your memory bit, you know. And if you do a lot of physical work, then this shrinks. This bit in your brain shrinks. But then over 24 hours, more people like that. And she found that if she did lots of exercises with people with normal, without ME and people with ME, and she found in the X-rays this thing stayed that big.
Okay.
So you didn't recover. You'd shrink it a bit, but that was it. That's where it stayed, and it'd take months for it to grow back up again.
Bloody hell.
So that was the most infuriating thing with me. I used to swear in the garden.
How's your health now? Is it improved, or you still?
I've got used to it.
Right.
But like well, my wife will tell me off saying, "Oh, you've done too much again. Stop it." Yeah, because to give you an idea, we went to Glencoe, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I did the journey of going across to my niece in Peterhead.
Yeah.
And her great niece, fantastic. It was 8 years I hadn't seen him. Not 6. I said it was 6. It was 8 years since I'd seen him. Fantastic. Came back. I'd done 998 miles altogether.
Yeah.
And we went shopping the next morning. Fine. Wednesday. That was it. I slept 10 hours. That was it. And the rest of the day was just that.
Mine's weird. Mine's weird because after the strokes and then the operation, especially the operation, so mentally, my brain gets exhausted. And after which it will be after today, which yesterday, everything else. But so my brain gets exhausted. I wake up early. So after my operation, the next day I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't work out why. And ever since then, I've had to force myself to wake up at a bit later, a bit later. And to this day now, I used to wake up at 6 and then take Jake out for a walk at 7 and everything else. And it sort of started. Now Jane's dropped 2 days. It's a bit inconvenient.
Yeah.
So I've now forced myself to wake up at 7 to take Jake out at 8. But the weirdest thing is I get exhausted, but I fight it. And I won't go to bed till 10 o'clock at night.
That's the problem. If I fight it, 2 to 3 days later it hits me.
Right.
And that's it.
Well, I did in the beginning, I did do exactly the same as that. But now, I tend to, what happens is I roughly sleep 8 hours. If I fall asleep, and I still do that sometimes, but if I fall asleep, then I find it really difficult to go to sleep at night. But I have noticed,
the same basket as that.
I went through a period, actually the doctors said, the specialist said, after about 2 years, your brain will start to, you'll work it out and you'll start to sort things out. Well, it didn't. It got worse. I got a bit more ratty, a bit more irritable. Yeah. And then I would get tired, and then I said to myself, you have got to go to sleep. You've got to go to sleep, or you're just not going to be able to function. And so now, I'll probably come back, lie down on the sofa and have a couple of hours kit, and I can go to sleep at night. But
well, one of the funny parts, but I think I told you, I'm a radio ham. I've been a radio ham for 30 odd years. I was also the secretary of the club in North Wales. And it got a bit of a joke in the club. We'd have a conversation, me and another amateur radio ham thing, we'd have chatting. Then she said, Muriel, he just said next week he'll bring so-and-so with him. Can you remember for him? Because I wouldn't.
I say that to Jane. We have a wall planner upstairs that we write everything on. And I always say to Jane, remind me, or I email myself when I'm out and I can't remember it. And when I saw you yesterday, when there's a load of things Rich and I were trying to work out when, where, and I said to Rich, just remind me, because even if I write it down on my phone, I won't remember to look at my phone when I get home. It's like yesterday when I met you, I was actually worn out and I only had 3 hours of doing. And I think one of the biggest things I did is withdrew from the world because I found it easier just to cope with my own thoughts and getting up every day and dealing with myself, and then dealing with myself and Jane, and then going away and getting used to new things again, to actually go out in the world and start getting used to talking to someone like with you today. Obviously, we're going to have a chat now. And then we're going to go out for a wander. And when I come back, I'm going to be worn out. I'm going to be worn out for a couple of days. You'll probably be the same. And it's quite a shock to the system, isn't it? That you want to do so much, but you can't do what you... You can't always do what you think you can do on the day you want to do it.
I've explained to people, my brain is going, you can do this, do that. My body's going, you can do.
Yeah. And The other day, I couldn't work it out, so I don't know whether you get like this, but I took him for a walk for a couple of days, and I found there's some steps I go down. I found myself almost running down these steps, and then I was like, went along the prom, and then up them down the grass banks really quickly, went along with him, this, that and the other, and I thought, oh, do you know something? I could probably start running again soon. And I come home and I said to Jane, I said, what benefit is running over walking? And she said, well, your knees get knackered on running, so to stick to walking. And I thought, I don't know why I'm even thinking about running. Anyway, within 3 days, I'm thinking to myself, I can barely walk down these stairs today.
Yes.
Whereas the other day I was running down them and I cannot work out why. And I'm sure it's more in there than it is the body. I don't understand. So there's definitely, when you get brain damage, it does cause all sorts of issues. What advice would you give for anyone? And this is different for us because we've both retired, which has always come a bit of a shock because I sort of did have a bit of a plan.
48 when I retired.
So what advice would you give to anyone of whatever age about retirement?
Well,
even though we both had it forced on us.
What we did, which we didn't realise, that every time we got a bit more pay between us, we get another insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we built up our retirement, because technically being social services, I retired at 60, so I started getting a pension at 60 officially. It's just when you can, don't leave it. Even if it's just an extra quid or £2 or something, put it in a life-saving thing, an insurance thing or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way things are going, you're going to be pauper by the time you firmly retire these days.
I think it's a very good bit of advice, and it's something I try and tell everyone these days, and everyone from 17 and earlier the better. Everyone says the earlier better, but when you're 17, 18, you think, I just want to go out with my mates, I want to drink, I want to do this. Oh my God, you don't realise, because as time goes by, we live longer, but also you can retire earlier. Yeah. So you can actually give up work if you're clever and retire earlier and do loads of stuff with your life, but you won't have any money to do it with. And even though you want money early on, I think when I was younger, I definitely wanted money early on. I spent everything I had. But I did take out some shares back then, which have helped out later on. But I also, I've got forces pension, and I've got prison service pension and things like that. And some of the pensions and some of the schemes that I've got really helped, and they're all coming in slowly. Yeah. But one of the great things I did was my last job, you could put up to a maximum amount in and they'd match it. I think it was like £150 a month.
Right.
So I knew that if I was putting £150 a month in, so were they. So that's £300 a month. Yeah. So I made full use of that, and I put the exact amount away, and then which has helped out because that as soon as I moved that into an ISA actually. So a lot of the things I've done with the ISAs, every year you get 20 grand ISA allowance. So I've put that in, and I had been putting it away. Slowly, it's slowly like you've done. It's slowly built up, so that when after my stroke, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've gone from the money I was earning, which is quite substantial, to zero. So I thought, right, I need to speak to a financial advisor. I need to work out what to do, and I need to know if I can afford to retire. And the interesting thing he said was this. He said, you'll need more money now than you will do when you're 80, if you live that long. He said, but what people don't understand is you need money less as you get older. You do less because from, let's say 75, 80, whatever, you start to do less. You stay indoors more, you do less. So you're...
That's why I wear this.
Because you're supposed to stay indoors. But, how old are you?
74.
Oh, okay, 74. So only 12. Only young then.
Yeah, and I still play wheelchair basketball.
So he said, basically, you would need more money. And he says to people, what do you need a month? And I said, well, I don't know, to pay everything and do everything, I'd probably need about £1,000 a month, something like that. He goes, perfect. And I said, why? He goes, well, some people I sit them down, I say to them, what do you need? And they say, oh, £2,000 or £3,000. And he says,
why?
Why? What do you need? What are you going to spend that on? Do you know what I mean? And so, fine, I get some people have expensive lifestyles and they lifestyle things. Because I've been like you and I've had accident and illness in the past that have knocked me flat. I've learned to live in a different way. And I've had jobs and times in the past where I've had unlimited funds to buy whatever I wanted. And then a year later, I've got nothing again. And I've learned, you know, funny you say Thatcher, but in the Thatcher years, I lost my house, I lost everything. Do you know what I mean? So I've sort of been one, I mean, I can actually remember my ex-wife when I had my 2 young boys. I remember one of my young lads had eaten a pear out of the fruit bowl. And it was actually for my lunch the next day. And so where my young lad had this pear, and I was slightly getting annoyed because he'd eaten the pear. And then my wife then said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Well, he's eating my lunch like that." And she said, "Well, what does it matter?" I said, "Well, because I haven't eaten properly for 3 days, and we've only got £25 this week for shopping, and we don't get the rest of the shopping because my income and outgoings, my outgoings was £200 a month more than my income." And we were struggling, and we would not, so, you know, we were getting to the point where we were going to lose the house, you know. So I think financially as well as your health, you go through those peaks and troughs in life, don't you? And if you don't make allowance later on when you've got the money, you can't rely on anyone else to bail you out, you know.
Yeah, we got that way because my wife's on mobility and disability living allowance. And I was on incapacity benefit, £44 a bloody week. You know, well, you know, at that time was the yuppie thing. Why the freaking hell would you want to just do that?
Well, it's true though.
It's just...
Well, after I had my motorcycle accident, and I remember I had this insurance, obviously insured. So I was hit by a car, hit and run, left in a ditch for dead, broke my back. I was stuck at home in a wheelchair sort of thing, on the sofa at the time. And I was reading through this insurance, and I thought, hang on a minute, I get £5 for every night in hospital, and I get this figure for this, and this figure for this, and this figure for this, and then I've got to claim whatever it is, disability benefit, this, that, and the other, because I couldn't walk. They said I'd never walk again at the time. And so you have to go through this process. Oh my God. And to get £40 a week, you've got to have visit to this person. I couldn't get off the bloody sofa. I couldn't move. And they want me to see all these people. And I rang up, I said, right, I can't move. You know, what can you do for me now? Well, nothing until you've been assessed. Well, how do I get assessed? Well, you have to go to this place, which was nowhere near where I live. And I said, well, how do I get there then? Well, you just got to get there. And I went, what, how? Like, you know, and okay, joke on the side, my ex-wife got to take me, I think, in the end to have this. And then I went in there, and this bloke basically stood there, and he got me to, anyway, examine me, cut a long story short. And he's obviously for them, the other insurance company, which I didn't realise what I'd gone to. And he said, "Oh, you know what's wrong with your back, don't you?" And I said, "What's that?" "It's because it's that shape." I said, "No, it's because I got hit by a car." Like, I thought, you're trying to not pay me out, whatever it was, like 40 quid a week or whatever, because you're trying to blame it on the shape of my spine. It's like and I thought, do you know, how do people survive? And I think it was the drive in my head at the time that forced me to do everything I can with my friends to get me. And anyway, cut a long story short, I could walk again. And with a friend of mine, I started my own business because I couldn't go and work for anyone because I didn't know what day I'd be good and what day I'd be bad. And when we were actually setting up this place, we were welding the floor in this place, we were my first motorcycle business. And I kept going outside and being sick because painting the walls and everything else was just making me ill, and you'd never have been able to work for someone else. They go on, you're going out, I don't want you working for us. But because working for yourself, you could then... Someone once said to me, how do you get paid if you're off sick when you work for yourself? I said, you're never off sick when you work for yourself. Because you just work all the time. If you're sick, you just be sick at work. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be I'll go off.
Yeah, that's with motorbike courier work when I couldn't go for a job. I did this 3 months. Well, so I travelled from North Wales to Manchester every morning. Then started work. And I'd done, 13,000 miles in 3 months. I had a square bum in the end. But again, it was making money, there was something coming in. Then
making ends meet.
Oh, and then somebody knocked me off my bike. This woman came out the side road and knocked me flying. Ended up sort of on the pavement, wrapped around bushes. What happened?
Do you have any hobbies now and pastimes now you're retired? Obviously you've been retired a long time.
It's still wheelchair basketball and photography.
Yeah.
That's about it, and gardening.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Nothing strenuous then?
I started to, then I ended up having... I didn't realise I'd worn 3 discs at the base of my spine. Yeah. And 2018, doing all this exercise with the young kids, because I'm a coach as well. And I couldn't get out of the chair. So that was a scan in the end, MRI scan, and I found I got 3 discs.
I remember that, because that was when I was having back problems as well.
Really, So I did wheelchair basketball for a year then. Mm-hmm. Then they said, oh, there's nothing we can do for you, so you'll have to go on this national exercise programme to help with your back, you see. So I did that, fine. Just getting better. I started first time in a wheelchair after just over a year. COVID was the next flaming month, wasn't it? So I didn't have a wheelchair for another year.
I think COVID's not... I think there's obviously loads of horrible aspects of COVID, and I don't want to talk about too much of that on here, but I think one of the strange things about COVID, the amount of people with issues in life that it's held back and caused issues too. And I think this year, going forward from around about now, people are just going to start coming back out and trusting the world again and getting on with things. I know a lot of people have just done it a lot beforehand, but I've tried to organise a few things over the last couple of months and no one's interested, and I think there will be, like in a couple of months time people will, once the weather changes, and I think people have the confidence to go out. I think we've all been knocked back. Like I've tried to make bookings on places, and the next thing you know, it's been changed and everything else. I think people have lost confidence in booking, but it's definitely held a lot of people back.
I know, North Wales coast, a lot of the hotels, some have had to be sold.
Oh, have they?
Just can't get the people.
Well, we've just been to the Isle of Bute, and the rescue package was quite good, but now that's all over with, and there's still not much tourism. It's quite interesting. They were saying like the tourism hasn't come back to the islands yet, whereas Scotland got battered at certain aspects through COVID because people go abroad, but people aren't tending to go out at the moment, not even booking anything. So if you could go back and give your younger self some advice about life, what age would you go back to, and what advice would you give?
14, because my dad left home with another woman, Dorothy Gervin, and the next 2 years at school was if I could do woodwork, technical drawing and sports every week for 2 years, I'd be fine. Yeah. Because the rest of the thing went...
Okay.
Oh, interesting one. I forgot about that. To the extent I got the unofficial record for the school of having a strap off the headmaster for 5 days in a row.
Sounds a bit like my school.
Well, it didn't help because I used to get double strap because people obviously he had a leather strap, but I had to cut it in fingers, so it went around your fingers and really. But obviously, people have done that. And he hit himself on the leg. So every time he did that, lift his leg up, he'd go, you think that's funny then? Again.
God, you go back to those days. I remember like our PE teacher used to have a golf ball in a bloody slipper. And headmaster used to have this great big shoe. My technical drawing teacher used to hit you with a wooden set square.
First technical drawing, woodworking. First one, you weren't paying attention. Whacking great compass in your desk.
Hey, you always used to. They used to throw. There's a bloke called Roy Pearson. My school was quite in the middle of 2 big estates in Maidstone, and they were basically warring with each other most of the time.
Yeah,
and the school was in the middle.
We were Brownlee Green.
So it was like Mangravit and Tovel, and they were warring with each other. So 2 warring factions, and everyone went to school in the middle. So you learnt quite a lot about life. But the teachers were remember Giant Haystacks? Yeah. Well, I think one of them was his brother's mate or his brother, and he was one of the teachers there. And then there was a Roy Pearson who was an Olympic athlete and everything else. and they were all teachers, but they ended up sorting, and you should see the trouble they had with parents and everything else. Every day there was fights outside the gates and this, that and the other. So I think that's probably why corporal punishment was at its worst at that school. But no one got away with anything.
Yeah, Coronel, the other thing with that was I got the school record for the javelin, because this headmaster was at the end filming, you see. Took it as I could to get. And when I stopped, Mr. Fat Bastard. And the teacher said, "Excuse me, Mr. Me." I pretend I didn't hear that. So that was good. Yeah.
Can you recommend any books that you have found inspiration from?
Books, so yeah, I've got it here. I'll read it out to you. Yeah, memories and things.
And I'll put this below afterwards anyway. So.
Yeah. Right, it's Erik Erikson.
Yeah.
8 Stages of Human Development. And I got this when I was doing childcare, learning, training for me with social work. And it really hit me, because he says that there's 8 stages. And if you don't go through that stage properly, when you're an adult, it gets even worse.
Okay.
Because you go through it again.
Yeah.
In different circumstances.
Okay.
But you find it more difficult to cope with it as you're an older person.
Okay.
So it's because you haven't been successful. Like a lot in childcare, kids that weren't loved, and the hatred in them from little ones, or like one lad said to me, I was making him do this job, and "You can't eat me more than my dad." Oh, forget it, son, don't bother, just go over there and tears, just go in the loo and I'll come back, and and things like that. And kids with cigarette burns on them, because that's what Dad used to do, stubby cigarette out on the legs and things, So yeah, could relate to what I did, because of the things I did. And I didn't see my dad for another 17 years. I met him again when I was married, 2 little kids. Yeah, it's like a basic trust, mistrust, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anatomy, shame, that was the other thing I got as a baby. Of my brothers were 11, 15 and 17 years older than me. When I was at school, secondary school, my mum said, "Well, you'll never be as good as your brothers." Oh, thanks, Mum. So...
Oh, I heard that quite a bit.
Intuitive versus guilt, and again, that shame and the guilt thing that a lot of parents do, and we used to have all sorts of things. Oh, they said you'd smack us around the face if we came into care. What? So you had a lot of that to deal with. Industry and inferiority. I've not been very confident all my life because of it. I'm quaking in my boots when I've been at meetings and things.
I fully understand that. Yeah. I think a lot of people probably would do.
And the worst one was when I was working for RNIB company, Royal National Institute of the Blind, Wales. And there's this conference down in Cardiff, which I was included as RNIB member, because I was working with the police authority about making sure that people with sight loss get looked after properly. So was it 80 delegates in the room? Oh my God. I've got to talk to this lot. Yeah, so quaking like mad inside, but having to appear to be confident. Yeah, identity and role confusion. Again, all these things add up, and if you don't get through it, like people that have been battered or beaten when they're youngsters, they automatically do it when they get youngsters. Almost, nearly all the same. I didn't, unfortunately. Well, I did a little bit of beating. And I realised what I was doing. It was because
you have to learn to stop yourself becoming what happened to you. So I fully understand that.
And intimacy, and isolation. That's what a lot of people do, like you were saying earlier. Especially this COVID thing.
Oh, we have to get this book now. You've said that.
People that say, "Well, I've been so alone, and I can't cope with crowds anymore." Because we both my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter work in shops. Saying the amount of people that, especially first thing in the morning, come in, can't cope with crowds anymore. Can you have so and so and so and so? And go out. you know, before the crowds come, because they can't cope with it anymore, because they've been shut up for literally for 2 years.
Makes sense.
They can't cope with
It's
crowds
almost
anymore.
like a agoraphobia, isn't it?
And generality is stagnation. You know, like, we've had our things, but we keep going.
Keep going, yeah.
But a lot of people will get, that's it.
I think that comes in with the isolation, because what happens is like, there's me one minute standing on a stage somewhere talking to a load of people and leading photo walks with hundreds of people. After this, I couldn't do that the next day. I had no confidence in, but I'll have to get this book though. This is,
and then this last one is ego and despair. If you, not egotistical, but you're okay with who you are. But if you're not okay with who you are, then you're always going to be, and someone boosts you up falsely, you start to go to them, and then, I'm not going to do that again. You know, and that kind of thing. It was a smashing book for me, but also in childcare to understand about.
It sounds like, just from those points, it sounds like a book I want to read.
Eric Erickson. Absolutely smashing.
I'll take a
It's years old.
in a minute, and then I'll put it on.
But if you read it as, and forget all the bits on it, read it as it is, I should say. For me anyway, instantly rings true. Yes, and
well, those points ring true to me for a lot of things.
20 years in childcare, you know, Well, no, I've been saying I shot Ian and Leah and Jackie in the car. Well, I've been shot at twice. I've been stabbed. I've had my head's been split open 3 times. I've had a spiked running shoe in my face. Been threatened with knives, guns, you name it. The 2 weirdest ones was 3 pool balls in a pair of socks, Zakosh, and nunchuckers. You know, but that was me. I was part of my life.
I've been stabbed. We were told that. I've been shot, I've been stabbed, and threatened with all sorts of stuff in my life as well. Yeah. There's a bit of a sliding doors thing for both of us.
Yeah.
Right. That's it for today, and I'm sure we're going to do another one at some point in time. But what I do at the end of all of these is something I got from Diary of a CEO. Is Ian's written a question in this diary. If you could just read out the question Ian's written, and answer it, and then after you've finished, just write a question of your own. Okay. I'll leave that in there. Yeah. So there's that one. If you can read what he's written. His handwriting doesn't look too bad. Okay.
If you could change one thing from your past, what would change your future? What would it be and why? Be more confident and taking opportunities that I should have taken because I wasn't confident to take it. Yeah. And that would have changed a lot of things, and I would have got more training, a bit like the school thing. You know, if I'd have changed my attitude, my dad left. If I'd have been more confident, again, my own ego.
I think I'll tell you a story about that. So I don't know if I've ever said this before. So when I was roughly 50, 48, 49, I got asked to talk for a photographic company. Yeah. I then got asked to talk for a photographic society. I then got asked to talk for the big photographic society in this country. Then I got asked by the Royal Photographic Society of South Africa to do something, and it was like a snowballing, and I had no confidence. So I eventually thought to myself, I said to myself exactly what I haven't got the confidence to do this. I don't think I can do it. And then Sarah Kate, who I'm going to be interviewing in a couple of weeks' time, kept saying, just do it, you're natural. And then she said, you should teach anyway, you should teach because you're really good at teaching. And I thought, no, I don't want to do any of this. I haven't got the confidence to do any of this. And because of her keep going on about it, and Jane keep going on about it, and because people kept asking me, then one person said one thing. If it's a subject that you know everything about, like you with nursing and everything else probably, if it's a subject you know everything about, then you can't go wrong and you can't be tripped up, can you? No. So I think it was a very, very small group of people asked me to come and talk for them. And I said, well, how many people's in your photographic society? And they said, well, 20. And I went, 20? I said, so there'll be 20 there? Yeah, 20 there of our people. And I said, oh, okay. And I said to Jane, I said, do you know, why not try it once to see how it goes? And I thought, right, you know, I'll take a few bits with me. I'll make sure I've sort of got a backup for the projector. And, you know, a bit naively. So I thought, let's go along to this and let's just give it a go anyway. So I turned up to this room where there was 400 chairs. I walked in, I plugged my stick into the laptop. It wasn't compatible with the Word, or not Word, the presentation format on theirs. And I thought, right, that's no good. So I plugged my laptop into their projector. It didn't work. It wasn't compatible because it was I was stood there and I thought, what am I going to do? So basically, I had to redo a presentation for the photographs that I luckily had on the stick. and then I had to redo a presentation really, really quickly. So I had about 15 minutes to redo this presentation. I put this presentation together. I redid it on their computer so it would work. And all that time, this hall was filling up. And with IBS and everything else, I was thinking, oh my God, I was sweating, I was backing in and out of the toilet, this, that and the other. Just about everything that could go wrong that day that I was always scared of went wrong. But I still did the talk and I got out the other side. And from then onwards, I didn't turn anything down. And I thought, I am going to do this. And then everything came then, the Fujifilm thing came and everything came. I was never not scared. I was never not terrified of doing them. And the stroke finished it all, but I was sort of coming to the conclusion that even though I was now getting something out of it, the other side of it, which we'll talk about another day when we'll talk about this again one day, is the fame and fortune as such that comes with it. You don't want it, and I was quite happy.
I remember.
I just wanted to do those things, talk about stuff that I was passionate about, but I didn't want all the rest of it. You know, I don't want to talk about that today. But
friends. Radio Hand friend said to me once, you've got this thing about your voice. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I went on the Irish ferry from North Wales. He said, this little Irish bloke, he said, I was going on first because the wheelchair user, he was MS, so he takes the wheelchair. He said, he just raised his voice just that little bit. And he said, it stopped hundreds of people getting on just by using his voice. He said, you've got the same thing. He said, because he used to take... People learned difficult. Used to take them for a beer with the, after the meeting, things like that. He said, you got the same thing. He said, even in the club when there's a meeting, you say it once, nothing happens. Then you say it again with this like tone in your voice, and everyone stops still and listens. He said, you don't realise you're doing
experience.
It. You know, and
you don't realise what experience you get over your life, do you?
Yeah, because at one point in Bristol, the kids had the medical, we had 60 lads in the hall, and just me looking after 60 lads.
Good luck with that.
Hey, get in line, and so he got used to it. He's got used to using my voice. And again, another friend with a dog, and he said, "You've changed your voice now." He understood. He's working. I said, "Yeah." First one was a request. The second one was a command. With the tone, he did it. Didn't realise that.
Learned skill.
He said, your voice changed, and then he came to you instantly.
Right,
So
thanks for that.
Right.
If you could write a question in there for me, for the next person who you don't know who it'll be, that would be great.
Okay. It's the 1st of June, isn't it? Yeah.